Podcasting by Professionals teaches you to become the expert host of your own show and podcast for profit. Join us. We're reaching millions.
Welcome to Podcast for Profit. I'm Teresa Marone, the Learn To Queen, and our show is presented by podcastingbyprofessionals.com. If you want to podcast for profit, then you're in the right place. Our show covers topics like content marketing, collaborations, marketing through social media and affiliate sales, and you'll get the up-to-the-minute industry news on syndication and distribution from Podcast.Place. The team at Podcasting by Professionals has a great show for you today.
Global Broadcasting Networks is a proud sponsor of this show, brought to you by Podcasting by Professionals. At GBN, we provide the ultimate experience in professionally produced podcasting and live aired radio shows through our network stations, including TogiNet.com, AllBusinessRadioNetwork.com, and LessonsInJoyfulLivingRadioNetwork.com. We are currently listened to in over 200 countries around the globe and plan to double our listening audience in 2015. We are currently looking for great content providers just like you to start your own show to reach your target niche market. We have listeners from all areas of the cultural, spiritual, and business communities looking for the convenience of connecting with you through your podcasts. What we look for in our radio show host is the commitment to professional training and show development so that you will be set up as the expert in your niche right away. We know that this is essential for your success, and that's why we are proud to sponsor Podcasting by Professionals. Ask your trainer at Podcasting by Professionals how you can get started with your very own radio show today.
Today, our hosts take a look at the value of choosing the right partners in your journey to success. First up, Martha A. Sanchez closes her series of how to be an expert guest with tips for choosing the ideal host for your message and how to honor that opportunity. Then guest star Larry Broughton, speaker, best-selling author, and serial entrepreneur, shares what gives him inspiration and then how he turns around and shares that inspiration with others. On Learn To, with me, Teresa Marone, we talk about the treasure of value you can both give and receive by joining a community that shares your vision. And stay tuned for red-hot, right-now insider news from the exploding podcast industry with Keith Rupnik of Podcast.Place. And now you know what that means. I hear those jungle drums, and that means it's time for the Marketing Jungle with your host, Martha A. Sanchez.
It's a jungle out there, and welcome to the Marketing Jungle with me, Martha A. Sanchez, the Google Queen, where every show I bring you marketing tips that will engage your target audience and generate leads. In parts 1 and 2 of Tips to be a Great Guest Interview, the areas of preparation and coordination were addressed in detail. Let's look at it from another angle. We've all heard the term selling from the stage. Here's the analogy for preparation. Preparation is where you're identifying your audience's pain points and how you can solve the problem with your presentation. Coordination is when you are setting the stage for revealing the benefits of your product or service by giving examples of how a client's problem was solved. Now, in part 3, we're going to be focusing on identifying the offer and establishing trust with your audience so you can close the sale. Let's begin with the next tip. Number 7, have a call to action specific to your audience. Before you decide what your call to action will be, you'll need to know the parameters of the show. Some shows and events do not allow you to sell. However, they will allow you to provide information to the audience and encourage them to contact you. Part of your preparation work and research before you are interviewed should always include clarifying with your host what their rules for selling on their show are. Some questions you may want to ask include, does your host require a percentage of whatever you sell from their platform? And do you need a specific offer just for their audience? These can make very big differences in your planning prior to the event to make sure that you capture as many leads as possible. Once you know the rules of engagement for marketing on the show, your offer should be specific to that audience and of value to them as well as being relevant to your discussion. It needs to be something so enticing that it will get them to opt into your list or buy right then and there. There are really two basic offers you can provide, and which one you choose depends on the audience and your host's rules. These are A, a free, irresistible offer to get them on your list. When you're not allowed to sell at the event, this is the strategy to use. However, it can also be used in instances where you have very limited time to engage with prospects as well. The other one is B, sell a product or service. Now, before you decide what product or service that will be, you're going to want to check with your host to see what the price point is for purchases for their audience. Are they more likely to buy lower end or higher end products? Get specific price ranges so that you can make an informed decision. The next tips focus on developing rapport and trust with your audience and your host. This will set you up for closing with the offer that you have just selected so that you can successfully motivate your audience into action. You can find out more details on these tips on my blog at podcastingbyprofessionals.com. And remember to tune in next week for part 4, the final in the series of tips to be a great radio guest. This is Martha A. Sanchez, marketing expert for Podcasting by Professionals, signing off.
This is Podcast for Profit. Learn how to start your podcast at podcastingbyprofessionals.com.
This is Martha A. Sanchez, and today I have an amazing guest with me, Larry Broughton. Larry is an award-winning entrepreneur and CEO, best-selling author, serial entrepreneur, keynote speaker, and former Special Forces operator. I know we've got a limited time to talk about your book, Flashpoints for Achievers. What was your inspiration for the book?
Well, I'll tell you, the inspiration was just that I realized the power of starting your day with positive mental imagery and intentionality. What I found is that these are just little bite-sized nuggets of inspiration. They're kind of these high-octane, thought-provoking messages that bring about transformation for leaders and high achievers so they can set their day up and start doing great things. We learn a whole lot differently today than we did, say, 40 years ago or even 20 years ago. We're looking for these little bite-sized nuggets. And it's really brief. You can do this thing in just a couple of minutes, but they are thought-provoking. There are team-building flashpoints. There are inspirational ones. They're about transformational and servant leadership. So there are a variety of themes in this, and I know organizations, and I know both nonprofit and for-profit organizations that use flashpoints as a training guide for their staff meetings.
So tell us, what things did you do to make this a best-selling book?
You know, I kind of spent several years building a tribe, and I do a lot of speaking, and so whenever there's an introduction going on stage or leaving the stage, it's mentioned that Larry is a best-selling author, and here's one of the books that he's got, because I've got a few others as well that have been bestsellers. When people hear you speak, when they hear about the passion that you have, you get a little bit of insight, like the questions that you're asking on the inside of why did you do this, what's the inspiration for it. Sometimes that triggers people in a way that reading something on the back of a book that a publisher wrote, it touches them in a different way. So I do a lot of public speaking. I do a lot of radio interviews. If you touch somebody in an emotional way, they want to take more of that home with them. And particularly if you're an authentic speaker, Martha, there are a lot of people out there who don't get real deep. They're very superficial, and people don't get an emotional connection with them. They may learn something, but they don't get an emotional connection. But when I go out and speak, I get pretty authentic. I'm pretty transparent, and I tell people I just want to share the lessons that I've learned along the way so that people don't make the same mistakes that I made. And if they do make the same mistakes, then I offer ways of kind of getting out of that quagmire quicker than they might do it on their own.
And you can reach so many more people by being on the stage, by being on a radio show, by being on a podcast. I've had many authors tell me that being on a podcast just allowed them to expand their reach exponentially because it's not just a local stage, it's a worldwide stage.
Well, it's interesting, and it's, I want people to get in their heads whenever they can. If they're trying to build influence, they're trying to build a tribe, one to many is the way to do it. So I'm talking to you, but you have many people that are in your sphere of influence, right? And this is evergreen, right? So this may get posted on your website or put out there in the airways on one day, but somebody can come back 5 years from now In fact, I just had a mastermind group here yesterday, and there was a woman here in this mastermind group. She said, I met you 5 years ago and just wasn't ready yet. And then I heard you on a radio show in Texas, where she's from. And she said, it just reminded me that's somebody I want to be connected with. And so she's been here, twice in my office here in Orange County for mastermind sessions. So you never know once it gets out there in the airways, when somebody's going to actually hear it.
Well, listen, Larry, how can they get your book, Flashpoints for Achievers,
Sure.
and or contact you?
Sure. So Amazon.com, it's called Flashpoints for Achievers. People can follow me. Best way to do it is just go to my new leadership and high achievement website called Ugozi.com. That's YOOGOZI. And that's really a Swahili. It's a variant of Swahili word uongozi for transformational leadership. But it's Ugozi.com. And all my social media stuff is on there as well.
Thank you, Larry, for your insights. And I want to take this opportunity to also to thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you there.
Imagine having a success story of your own. Whether you want to start your own podcast or re-energize your current one, the Podcasting by Professionals newsletter has what you need to be successful and on the cutting edge of the podcasting wave. So take advantage of this marketing opportunity of a lifetime and start getting your message out to millions by engaging new audiences in the fastest way possible through a podcast. So visit podcastingbyprofessionals.com and sign up for our newsletter today. That's podcastingbyprofessionals.com.
Hi there, I'm Teresa Marone, and I'm the Learn To Queen. Join me and my guest expert collaboration partners for an inside look at the problem-solving industry. We want to help you so that you can help others.
How many times have you heard someone say, it's easy, and then it wasn't? Or wanted you to pay a whole lot more for something than you really wanted to, and then you tried to do it yourself? Well, the truth is, anything worthwhile is going to take some time or some money, and probably both. At least that's what my experience is. And the discernment to learn how to do it yourself or when to outsource those skills, that's a whole business out there now. Business coaches are all teaching time management and the value of prioritizing. But if you're struggling with this, let me give you some really good advice. Never outsource anything that tells your story. No one else can do a good job with that. And when you learn to tell your story in a way that says why you do what you do and why you're the best at it, then you start to see real success. Now, the major obstacle that holds us back from really being able to wear all the hats and do everything that we really want to do sometimes is based in fear. And the one thing that will make the biggest difference is asking for help. Now, the fear of asking the wrong question, maybe wasting someone else's time, or even revealing your weaknesses. All of this is based on fear that your value will not be appreciated. And all of us, I think, could safely say that we assume other people have already done it so much better and more professional with more cleverness. So what you really have to get to is if you really want to share your voice and make a difference in the world, then you have to burst through those fears and share the struggles you've been through and share your wisdom. There's someone out there that really needs it. Now, the treasure trove that I wanted to talk to you today about is not in knowing how to do everything. It's in the collaborations that you choose and who you choose to take your journey with, your good friends, your colleagues, and people who share your vision and support it. These are the people that you want to join in a community with. To me, this is how our world can change, to align yourself with people who support your vision and who can help you grow it. And as more people get into the feeling of collaboration and joining the right communities, then we can focus on the great gift of the present and bring that to people who need to hear our voices. The thing that we all need to understand is that there's always people ahead of us on the ladder to success, and there's always people behind us. So who can you mentor? And who do you want to mentor you? We all need encouragement from our friends and family, but real creative input from professionals that have already done what you want to do is what you need to achieve your goals. I have to thank my mentors and coaches, all people on the ladder above me, who coached me and taught me and kicked my apple cart when it was needed. I also have to thank the people that I mentor because they teach me in a whole different way. And they also teach me the value of where I've been in order to fully process where I am and to help me decide where my vision is going. I want to invite you to join our community. It has intentional and specific goal setting. It has advice from very successful people who have done what we all want to do. And the one thing that I want to remind you is never settle for what you don't want. I'm Teresa Marone, the Learn To Queen, and I want to help you so you can help others.
1.5 billion smartphones are waiting for content. Currently, 159 million Americans listen to online radio. Yes, podcasting is here to stay. However, podcasting is more than just sticking a microphone in front of you and talking. Our program, Podcasting for Beginners, will start you with all of the right moves to create a look, feel, and experience that your listeners will not soon forget. Create authority in your industry and connect with new customers with a professional podcast. Isn't that what you want? Join us at Podcasting by Professionals. Our 5-hour program is an easy-to-follow, step-by-step instructional to help you avoid the mistakes that can keep you in a holding pattern for months, even years. Early bird pricing available now at podcastingbyprofessionals.com. Join us and get your name in the game. We're reaching millions.
This is news from Podcast.Place, the web's place for podcast industry news. Deezer, the global digital music streaming service, has expanded its content offerings by adding news and entertainment programming. The launch of the new talk programming to Deezer's music streaming service means that listeners will be able to hear news, entertainment, and more, all on the Deezer format. ESPN Audio has debuted The Golf Podcast with ESPN.com golf writers Michael Collins and Jason Sobel. They will discuss the action on the course and everything surrounding the game and athletes. The podcast joins ESPN Audio's extensive offerings of sports-specific and general interest sports podcasts. Rocker D. Snyder is debuting a new podcast called Snyder Comments on Podcast One. With his rock icon pedigree and more than 20 years in radio and television broadcasting, Snyder promises straight talk and listener interaction, making sure the world of rock and roll is never the same. Swedish company Acast has raised $5 million from Sweden's Bonnier Growth Media. That's in preparation for growth within the United States and Europe. The new funding will be used to enhance the company's position in the podcasting market, connecting podcast producers with audiences and advertisers. Acast has offices in London and Stockholm and is currently recruiting for staff positions in the United States. And finally, Eric Newsom, Vice President of Programming for National Public Radio, is leaving to join Audible.com as Senior VP of Original Content. While at NPR, Newsom was one of the principal architects of NPR's podcasting strategy. For more podcast industry news updated daily, visit Podcast.Place, a website devoted exclusively to on-air hosts and producers working in the podcast industry. Brought to you by podcastingbyprofessionals.com. And that's what's happening in the podcast industry from Podcast.Place.
Your journey to success continues next time on Podcast for Profit.
Become an expert host of your own show and podcast for profit with podcastingbyprofessionals.com. Join us. We're reaching millions.